All right, we are live. Excellent. Got that. Hit record to the cloud. All right, awesome. Welcome this week to Playing to Win. I'm so excited. Happy December to everybody. It's crazy that it's already full holiday swing here in all of our lives. So if you're listening with us live today, welcome. You're going to love this next hour together. So excited about my guests. So let me just start by welcoming the amazing Angie Beck to the show today. Thank you so much for being our guest.
I'm happy to be here. It should be a lot of fun.
Oh, yes. I'm very, very excited. So how this started, and Angie, thank you. It took us a couple tries to find a date that worked for you. So I've been wanting to have you on for a couple of months. When I heard you speak, we were doing a citywide luxury panel in Austin, and I heard you speak. And you and I have met always in passing, but we've never really gotten to do the work together. So when I heard you speak, I was like, I have to get this to my listeners because, again, this lives on Playing to Win. It also lives on the Second Half podcast. And I just want to read a little bit about you, and then I want you to tell us a little bit about you. So just to kind of introduce you to the group, I want to read from your bio here. Angela Beck was a collegiate All-American guard from Millikan University. She's a 3-time Hall of Fame recipient who's been giving back to the sport throughout her career. She just finished a broadcasting career as an analyst with CBS Sports, Fox Sports, and the American Athletic Conference. Coach Angela Beck was a highly regarded teacher and promoter of the game and an outstanding program builder. With over 30 years of successful coaching experience at the high school, junior college, Division III, Division II, Division I, and professional levels. That's amazing. Coach Angela Beck has proven to be one of the most successful program builders in the women's game of basketball, successfully building 7 fledgling programs into winners. I mean, you were Hall of Fame person, like you were a player yourself. So I'm excited to go all kinds of directions. You're also a real estate agent today. And so I want to talk about, because you said a couple of things that really struck me, is like how you use your skills from like recruiting to build your winning team and all that, how you brought that into the world of real estate. So just so you know a little bit about me, my dad played basketball in college and I was the 6th grade hoop champ. I will tell you that. So girl, you just speak in my language. I went to basketball camp. So I really always admired women coaches. And so I'm very excited to hear your story because I think it's an incredible background that you have. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you'd like us to know about you? Let's tell us a little bit about Angie Beck.
Well, it's I'm kind of going to date myself a little bit because back in the day, the best thing they could say about me when they wrote articles about my basketball career was Angie played like a boy. And that's what I did. I was maybe a little bit before my time. I was a hooper. I played with all my boyfriends. I played with all the guys. I just loved playing basketball. In college, I had 17 scoring and assist records. Some of them still stand today.
Wow.
But the 3 I'm most proud of is most shots attempted in a game, most shots attempted in a career, and turnovers. So basically you can be a ball hog, a bad pass, and a poor shooter and still be a Hall of Famer, So anyway, I
love that.
You don't make the shots you never take, right? So I had a fun college career, and then I always wanted to be a coach. Just ever since I was a kid, I wanted to be a coach, and someone said just write it down and it'll happen for you. And I, of course that doesn't make it. It doesn't really happen, but I did write it down. I put it in an envelope and I really thought about it my whole life. And somebody said, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to be a college coach. And they said, well, you're going to have to be a high school coach first. And I said, no, I'm going to be a college coach. And I ended up being one of the youngest college coaches in the country at the age of 22. And I went on to, 3 or 4 different schools and, made them winners and, had a wonderful career with, all the players that I was able to influence. And I think I really worked hard. And that's the thing, what somebody once said to Angie, if you work hard, you're going to be successful. But I don't think hard work guarantees success. But I can tell you this, if you don't work hard, you won't be successful.
Yeah, that's true. It doesn't bring you closer, does it? Now, let's just back up a little bit. So you were coaching college at 22?
Yeah, I was the youngest coach in the country. Yeah.
Were you still in college at 22?
Yeah, no, what happened was I was kind of on a fast track. I went to undergrad and then I right away went to get my master's. My dad and mom were big influential people in my life. And if I have a moment, I'd love to talk about them. But my dad said, just go get your master's while you're poor, because you don't know any different. So I got my master's right under undergrad, and I got it in administration of sport, and spent some time at the Olympic Training Center. Worked under one of the administrators there, so I was really fortunate there. And then I talked to people, and I said, hey, do you know anyone that needs a coach? Because I'm looking for a job. And I went around and I say, hey, I'm Angie Beck. Do you know anybody who knows anybody? And that's all I did, And all of a sudden somebody called me up and said, hey, we need a coach. And then I went down, interviewed, got the job, and it was the biggest school I ever been to. I mean, my college was only 1,500, and my first coaching job was 10,000 students. So I was like, oh, heck, what am I doing? I wasn't sure what I was doing, but, I basically took them from never winning to, becoming a great program, and started my career right there.
That's amazing though. Like the idea that as a child, you knew you wanted to coach.
Yeah, I know it's weird because that's why when I see kids now, and I still, influence kids now, but I'm like, just believe if you believe it, like the most dominant thought in your mind is what's going to occur to you. And if you think it the most, you say it the most, and you believe it. If you can't say that, some people, I even ask kids, what do you want to do? They can't say what they want to do. Well, if you can't say it, it's not going to happen. So someone did that to me, and I don't know who to credit, but someone, really instilled that into me. And I just kept telling everybody I was going to be a college coach. And I never did become a high school coach, and I was never an assistant coach. And that's all I knew was being a head coach my whole life.
That's amazing. For what, 30 years, was it?
Well, it was 20 some years in college, and then I went and did the professional ranks, and I did some high school, and then I was a graduate assistant for 2 years when I was getting my master's. So, I just coached everything I could coach, and but anyway, that thing, I think it made me the kind of salesperson I am today, because, you're grinding. I really didn't talk to my family that much when I was a coach, because you're just so immersed. People say, what happens when you're a coach? Well, there's so many levels and so many things that you have to do throughout your entire year that you just don't have time to, really think about your own personal life. And I'm happy that I'm able to do that now. But, during my time, 25 years of that, I wasn't able to do that.
I think that comes with age too, because I think a lot of us that are like obsessively driven and competitive, right? Whatever it is, whether we're coaching or we're being a team leader or whatever we're doing, right? We're so involved if we love what we do, right? That sometimes the other things get missed in the that are on the sidelines, that should be in the forefront, right? And I think we learn that a lot of us in life as we go. So I think that's just a very valid thing. So let's talk a little bit more, because then I also want to talk about your transition into real estate, which is, and most of the listeners on here have something to do with real estate. But let's stick on coaching a little bit for you. So part of your job is you're recruiting for your team, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's probably the single most, great players make great coaches, but great coaches make great teams. I mean, you have to have the great players. So, I mean, that's an art in itself. Like the whole recruiting process. I always kind of laugh at real estate agents when they get upset because they lost a deal. And I thought, okay, what did you do to lose the deal? And they go, well, Susie Jones called me, and I had my presentation that I did. And then they called me up and told me I didn't have it. I'm like, wow, what, you lost it because of that? I mean, if that's all they had invested in it, and they had a 1 hour presentation, and that's all that they had given to that whole process, then I don't feel bad for them. So in recruiting, I learned a long time ago that I was recruiting a 7-year-old. And you start when they're in 7th grade, because you have an amateur athletic association. So everybody, your whole summers, you're looking and say, let's say I'm recruiting you. Where's Melanie going to be all summer? And so I chart you, and you let me know. And so I know what states you're going to be in, and you're going to go to these tournaments. So I'm taking recruiters there, or I'm having an assistant go there. And then for my top guys, I'm going to see all my top people. So you're basically nurturing them. You're not able to chat with them early on, but they know who you are. They know you're at their game. There is a relationship established.
Yeah, and you're studying them, right? You're studying their career.
Yeah, and then you're having a relationship, and then they're coming to your camps, and then you're getting to know their families. You have to wait till they're 18 years old to know if they're going to come to your school most of the time. Sometimes they do it early, but in the end, it's a hurtful process because you have invested, and if you don't invest in anything, it doesn't hurt. Well, it hurts like hell when you find out this girl that you just spent years with is going to Kansas. And I talked to several of my players that I lost in my life, and they're like, coach, and I'm like, yeah, you did me wrong, girl. You did me wrong, and we're having this conversation, but they still love me and I still love them, but it still hurt when I watched them play and they weren't playing for me.
Oh boy, do I relate to that as a team leader, because I feel like that's what I do, right? Is I'm looking for talent all the time, and I'm invested in my people, and I have friends all over the country that are not with Keller Williams, and I'm like, oh, but it would be so much better if we played on the same team, right? Yours is a lot longer than mine, right? But that's a real talent though, and it's relationships, right? It's a relationship building process that I think a lot of people might not realize that don't have anything to do with that process. Is that's a great training ground for real estate, right?
Oh, exactly. And I'm really strategic when I recruit in real estate, because I recruit like I recruited in coaching. I do invest like okay. So the first thing you do when you're a college coach is you recruit your state. Okay. And you recruit your state, and that's what I do. Well, what I'm doing right here is I'm recruiting my home base, right? As far as real estate. And you get to and so you nurture, you let it grow, you farm it. That's what you're doing. And so it's the exact same thing. But like, even when I go into a room or I strategize, like if I'm having a listening presentation, I am all about where I'm sitting. I'm all about who's sitting where. I strategize the entire room. I never take a seat before I make sure that I've got the right people sitting where I need them to sit, so I can have full attention, and I'm not, and then I know which one. I think the thing that gets underestimated in our job is who is the decision maker. And I think that's my go-to. I can figure out who is the decision maker. And I'm not making the non-decision maker feel bad, but I know how to work those two relationships to a point where that decision maker has a lot of confidence in me.
I love that you said that, because it's like having your playbook, right? It's like having your playbook. And so many people that are in sales, I mean, we have a lot of listeners that aren't in real estate, but anything in life, like if you don't understand how important that is, if you're dealing with a couple, that you need both parties, and like the how to, where you're sitting, the language you use, the questions you ask, all that matters. And it's not manipulation. It's playing the game at a higher level, because it's just efficiency, right? I don't see that. I see that as brilliant, actually, is like knowing how to communicate, knowing what works for people, and helping them. Because the thing that we get a lot is people like, oh, I'm scared of objections, or I'm scared of this or that. And at the end of the day, it's just things people want to know. So the more like you can understand the bigger process about setting yourself up for success, I think it really differentiates the people that succeed at a high level and the people that constantly struggle.
Yeah, well, one of my favorite recruiting stories is I was in Pennsylvania recruiting one of the top 2 guards in the nation, and I'm at Nebraska, and it's not easy for me to get one of the top guards in the country at Nebraska. And I had this relationship built with her. She and I were like yin and yang. I called her once a week. We really liked each other. Her mom didn't want her to go that far away, so this was their baby. But anyway, long story short, we'd flown in. We were in a tight schedule. It was in the boonies. We had, I'm putting my dress on in the car, and I realized that the shoes I have are too big for what I've got. So I was stuffing my shoes with toilet paper. Okay. And I have both shoes stuffed with toilet paper. So we're in the middle of this recruitment, and I realized I've got nothing. Like I can tell the mom isn't really, they don't want her to go to Nebraska, and it's just not feeling great. And whatever I'm delivering I can just feel it's just too much, whatever. And so I'm like, oh my God, why are you guys looking at me? You're looking at me. No, you're looking at my feet, aren't you? Oh, okay. I'll just tell you. Oh my God. Well, we were hurrying here, and these shoes don't fit. And I just pull my shoe out and I show them the toilet paper in my shoe. And it broke the ice. And, I know that sounds really weird, but so they ended up liking me as a person, and anyway, we got off the whole subject, and I ended up signing the girl. from Penn
Oh, that's
State. Yeah,
amazing. That's
yeah,
amazing. That's amazing. I love that. But it's also because the human element. I think what you bring to the table that a lot of people appreciate you is you're very real.
yeah.
You're
Well,
very real and trustworthy.
yeah, and you know that's what you need in business and everything that you do. You just have to know that you would do the same thing for them as you would do for yourself. And if they trust that you have, communication starts when you understand that I care about you as a person, and that's what happened with my players. I knew if they didn't know I cared about them, they weren't going to listen to what I told them to do. And so that's true in life, and that's true in recruiting too.
I love that so much. Okay, let's talk a little bit about, then you did some stuff with the different TV stations. What was
Yeah.
that?
Well, basically, I've commentated women's basketball for different conferences and stuff.
Oh, nice.
And I would be the color commentator, and I'd go and go a couple of days before the game, and then talk to the players and meet the people, and I would give the inside stories on what's going on in any competition. And then I would be the analyst on the show. I still have an opportunity to do it this year, but I'm not. I don't think I'm gonna. I'm just gonna fill in. I feel like I've done that now, and it's been a lot of fun. But it takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of time to do one broadcast, because you have to know every player, every intricacies. You have to know what the team's done all year. There's a lot that goes into it, similar to anything that you do in life.
Yeah. I'm really glad you cleared that up, because I was wondering what a color analysis was for CBS Sports and how that fit, right?
Well,
Because how you explained it, that makes sense.
Yeah, you have a play-by-play person that gives you the details, like the play-by-play, and then you have the color analyst that is usually a former coach or player or somebody that's been in the game a long time. And if you watch TV right now, you'll see that one is a play-by-play and one's a color analyst. So
I love that. I thank you for teaching me that. I love that. Okay, let's talk about when did Angie Beck decide to make this transition into real estate? How did that happen? And tell us about that.
Yeah. Okay. So in 2006, I that's the first year I decided to do some real estate, and I had been in between coaching, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to go back into coaching. And I thought I just might try it out. So I went full time for that year in 2006. And you know what 2006 is, right?
Yes.
The year fell apart, right? So I was the actual rookie of the year here at Lake Travis. And I sold $3 million worth of real estate, which I thought was a lot at the time. And, I thought I was going to have a really good career. And then all of a sudden, everything just tanked. And I was like, oh God, I don't really know if I want to be part, this is what happens to all the people that just had gotten in the game now, because they're all going to be leaving too. But I was like, I don't know if I'm cut out for that. So I decided to go back into coaching and then do real estate part-time. I kept my real estate license throughout that whole period from 2006 till now. I've always had my real estate license. But so then I went back into coaching full-time, did some stints at, I was an athletic director at high school and stuff here in Round Rock. And then I was coaching, and then I was selling real estate in the summer, and I was selling, quite a bit, and making a couple $100,000 in the summer. And I was just kept happening. And I was like, and basically my wife, Mary Bloomer, she looks at me, she goes, babe, why don't you just go into real estate full time? I'm like, oh, I don't know. I just don't, because you're a coach, like you just don't know if you could ever leave like that identity that you've had for so long. And she pretty much talked me off the cliff. And then I realized, you can't commentate for television if you're a coach of anything. You can't be affiliated. So I realized if I went full time into real estate, I could be a commentator too. So that's what I did in 12. And so in 2012 was the first year I went really full time. And I commentated too, though. So it's 3 of my months I was actually grinding for 3 or 4 games a week.
Wow.
So traveling and then, so that was January, February, March, I'm pretty much doing that. So, but then I was, full-time the other time of the year. But then I went full-time, and I never looked back. And I can remember, the people that were my first ones. I wanted to be a luxury real estate agent. I was scared to death, like everybody. I was scared to be full-time because they're like, you don't have any, I had health benefits. I had 401ks. I had all these things. And all of a sudden now you got nothing, so that's super scary, proposition. Even though I had money to go back on, it still was a scary proposition. Like you just don't want to fail. And then, I just remember just real quickly, I remember just driving around my neighborhood and seeing one of my friends who was from Vineyard Bay. And I'm like, what are you doing in here? And she goes, oh, Angie, I'm just looking around for lots. I'm like, you're looking around for lots? Well, let me see. So I ended up finding her 2 lots, finding her 2 builders, she built 2 houses. I sold her $1.8 million house over there. So that first transaction ended up being worth about 6 or 7 million for me. Wow. And that's really where I got my creds in the luxury market. And then all the people started seeing me as a luxury agent. And, and she's a friend. She lives 2 doors down from me right now. So
I love that. When was that, Angie? When did that happen?
That was probably 2012 or 13.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. Amazing. And then have you pretty much tell us about your business today? What's your business like today?
Yeah. Well, as far as what
just like, is it predominantly luxury? Is it mixed? Yeah. Are you a solo agent? Do you have a team? That kind of stuff.
Yeah. So I've been coached by Nicole Zuber. She's been my coach for the last 3 years. But
by the way, right?
I've always been a singular agent. Okay. I've never had a team. I've never wanted a team. I have had a couple full-time assistants, and I've kind of come and gone with them. Some of them, they've moved on, and then I've hired another one, and then they've moved on. And so then you're like, oh, I don't know if I want to keep doing that. So right now I don't even have a full-time assistant, but I'm basically luxury. My average sale is probably about 800,000. And so I do mostly all luxury and, do above the 20 million mark, every year. Depending, last year was crazy, the year before was crazy. So, but I've had a really steady pattern.
Nice. And so since you don't have admin help, do you have a transaction coordinator per transaction that you pull in?
Yeah. I kind of have gone with I've got a little bit of admin help part-time. Okay. And then my transaction coordinator, which I've always had. I never write contracts. I don't do any of that, and I never have. And then I have media people that I have. So I spend my money on my media. It does all my mail outs and all that. So I fractional it kind of like. So I said I have assistants, but I just don't want to answer to anybody. I think I'm at the age right now. I want to sell real estate. I want to meet the people, and I want it to be as seamless as possible.
I love that. And you can serve your clients at a really high level too. You need that infrastructure though. You just need to do the amount of volume that you do. A solo agent can get really far. So you're a really great example of somebody that can do a really big dollar amount, but you have to have the TC that's doing that, think about that hour productive, per dollar, what is it? A dollar per hour activity, right? And people get stuck in that. And I have so many wonderful agents who I love dearly, who thinks nobody can do it like them, and they won't let go of just the TC piece, right? And just like you've built these people. Gary Gentry's a great example, right? First ever hire of Keller Williams, and in the 10 years I ran Southwest with Diana, it was just him and 2 admin, and right? You can do a lot with great admin, and I think you're a wonderful example of that. So that's why that's what I thought it was, but I just want to make sure I understand your breakdown.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I've enjoyed it. And of course, I've always thought, well, should I get a team? Because I'd be great at that. But then, I don't want it. I like my lifestyle. My wife owned Angel's Ice House. We built it with
really?
Scratch. So we basically had a bar and grill in the family for 19 years. And that was a lot. So we had a lot of pieces to a lot of puzzles going with my commentating, with real estate, with that. And I just didn't, I didn't need something else to kind of bog me down.
Yeah, I love that. Okay. So tell me, what do you think, if you're talking to a listener today, that's either getting in the market right now, or really feeling, because, the world has changed, and this is not your first shift. You and I actually started the same year. That's funny. And so, what advice would you give somebody that is either not having the success that they want right now, or they're brand new to the game of real estate? Any advice you'd have for those guys?
Well, I think it's just you have to look at your entire portfolio. What are you about? What have you already been about? If you have never sold anything before, what makes you think you're going to sell it now? I'm sorry. You have to, you're not all of a sudden just going to get into real estate and be good at something that you've never done.
I love that.
I'm not saying you can't. I never sold real estate either, but I'm just saying you have to be good at things before you become good at something else.
You sold your coaching program though. You sold your coaching program and the vision. So you know how to sell.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. But I just think that I guess the thing I want to say is you have to look at yourself. Like I just had a friend move to another, agency from, whatever she was out to another one. And somebody goes, well, what do you think? You're going to be successful? I'm like, she doesn't know. I mean, she has to look within herself. That company's not going to make you successful. You're going to make yourself, you plus enthusiasm, hard work, and dream. Like everything that you do, everything that you're about is, if you wake up, what is your work ethic? If you think that, because you had 30 minutes of enthusiasm that day, that's going to make it, no, somebody else has 30 hours. The other person has 30 years. What is going to make you successful is you every single day, you plus enthusiasm, your hard work every single day. And if you don't have that, then you're probably not going to make it. And I think if you take two people of equal ability, and you look at those two people, it's the person that has the better mental game, that has the belief, because you have to believe to achieve. And so I can, if I was coaching people in real estate, I mean, I would, be looking at their inner game. Your inner game is so important. If you don't have the inner game, you can't sell something to someone else. And what is your inner game about? Because if you have doubt, like fear and doubt contort, retreat, contract, okay? And desire goes, reaches, and grabs it. And if you have the desire, you're going to go get it. But if you fear something, you're going to sit back and wonder, why didn't they call me? No, you're calling them. Hello. That's how you do it.
God, I love that so much, girl. I love what you just said. And that's in life, right? That's just in life. It's the inner game.
It's the inner game. And a lot of people don't have the inner game. And you have to work on it, by the way. And do you think I don't get upset sometimes? Yeah, I do. But I know if it's meant to be, it's up to me. That is my internal goal every day. Angie Beck, if it's meant to be, it's up to me. It's not up to anybody else. And I have to get out of my skin a bit and do what may be uncomfortable for me sometimes. And not everything in this game has been comfortable in the real estate game. And I have made a few mistakes and you learn from them, but that, failure's not fatal, it's not final, and if you think it is, I mean, you haven't failed enough. I mean, I've lost some games. I've won some games. I've lost some listing appointments and they do bug me when I lose them, but in the end, I'm going to win the next one. Okay. Yeah. Because I'm going to put myself in better position to win it. And I'm going to reevaluate, what was the process? What did I do wrong? And make it better. And that's what you have to do to yourself.
And you're not quitting and leaving the entire game of real estate or the basketball court because of a mistake. You're learning from it. I love that so much. That's probably why you were able to, successfully rebuild 7 fledgling programs into winners.
Yeah, I wasn't afraid to take a loser. My first program had never won. And, it was about image and if you just look at kind of what Deion Sanders did at Jackson State, okay? Jackson State, who's Jackson State? No one went to Jackson State, but he wore the big J. He had the big pride. That's what I did in the day. I made the girls feel like Southeast Missouri State was one of the greatest places to play. And we had the internal pride about it, so I think it's the same thing in your real estate. What does your day look like? What do you make? How do you surround yourself in your day to make yourself good? Who do you surround yourself around? Because, you have to surround yourself around somebody better than you to become great. And if you're not hanging around greater people, then, you're going to be average in your life.
I love everything you're saying is music to my ears, my dear. I love it so much. Question that I ask, and you've said this already a couple ways, but I ask every guest on the show, what does playing to win look like for you?
Playing to win, I guess it looks like it never stops for me. Everything I do is about the win. When I wake up, how I drive, where I go. I mean, I'm always thinking about how could I be first, or how could I situate myself? So I guess it's in kind of inbred in me. I'm not in the back of the room when I go someplace. I'm probably in the front of the room. In my family, we had 7 kids. we got we got praised if we were the first one standing in our graduation. We got praised for those kind of things. I mean, my family came to the Big 8 championship one year, and I was supposed to win it, and I lost it in the semifinals. And my family left me. They went and left because they went home. They went home because I lost, right? And I went back to the hotel room, and there was no one there for me. And I'm like, Mom and Dad, you left me. And they're like, well, you didn't win, and that's how I was raised. And they didn't mean to be mean. They just wanted to get home, if they would have stayed, if I would have won. But, I guess what I'm saying is, what does it mean to win? It's a lifelong process. It's a daily, it's not just one incident for me. It's how I live my life. Winning, being a winner. If it's good to win, then it's good to be a winner. Like I think about the holidays. What could I do? And for me, like, I don't want to do what everybody else does. So I want to do something special where I just put $1,000 in my pocket for the next 20 days. And I give $100 to someone in a grocery store that I know is, struggling. Something like that, like something that I could do to impact a person in a minute. My mom used to say hello to everybody everywhere. And I'm like, Mom, they don't want to. But now that I look at it, she tried to make somebody happy. And that's how we like to live our life.
And it sounds like great role models you had in your life, huh? Your
Oh
parents.
my God. My parents were just really quick. Raised 7 kids. My dad built his business from scratch, was multimillionaire when he was done. But they had 7 audiences with the Pope, 1 with Mother Teresa. We were National Catholic Family of the Year. So my dad was, my dad was big in the Knights of Columbus, and he had one of the 3rd highest offices in the Knights of Columbus. So we were really poor, though, really poor. So this was a big deal because we got to travel with the Knights of Columbus a little bit. So it was kind of fun, but just great role models. My mom just wanted us to be whoever we could be and be the best we could be. And she coached all of our teams. Every kid was in a sport. They gave us money if we could play an instrument. Nobody did, So it was just all sports, but it was a great life.
What it sounds like a wonderful like team to grow up on, right? 7 kids is like a whole team in itself, where you could be on the basketball court.
Everybody had their sport. Everyone was known for their sport. My mom and dad were just really involved in the community. They were big philanthropers. They gave back. They were big in Special Olympics. So we had great role models growing up, and so we try to do that. I think each one of us kids are trying to give back in some way.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that so much. So, it's being a coach is succeeding through others is very different than succeeding through yourself. And I think that you are living that in your, after being a coach your whole life, basically up until now, and you've been in real estate the last, for quite a while now, 10 years or whatever, full time. Coaching and helping people succeed is harder than doing it with yourself, but it's especially important what's going on around you. So like if you win or lose, are you winning? Are you losing? Right? All those things impact. And so the self-talk and the encouragement that you give yourself and others, I think is critical. And I think we're in a time where there's a lot of you're hearing a lot of more suicides in the youth. There's a lot of disconnect since COVID, right? That's just happening with the world right now, not to get off tangent, but talk to me like a coach of like, let's say we're losing the game, right? We're losing the game. I'm on your team. What's that conversation? How do you pull people back?
As far as like, we're losing the game right now?
Yeah, we're losing the game. It's like 3rd quarter, and we're behind. We should be doing better than we are because we're like equal caliber teams, and we're just not on our game. And we're kind of giving up a little bit. Like, how do you coach me?
Well, I think, you go back to your fundamentals, and, fundamentals are in coaching is fundamentals, repetition, concentration. Fundamentally, you have to have great fundamentals about what you're doing. So I'm like, I'll look at probably what we're not doing fundamentally in that game and talk about it. And then I'll get underneath their skin a bit and say, don't you expect more of yourself? Aren't we better than this? Nothing's as good as it seems, and nothing is as bad as it seems, but somewhere in between reality sets, right? And the reality is we're 5 points down, but this is doable, So I'm segmenting whatever that number is, and looking at that number and trying to encourage them to understand if we just get a stop here, a defensive stop, and we get, push the transition, make something happen, that we can make it happen. So, I mean, I think I was always super positive about how we could get there and have them understand how to get there. But, like with real estate, it's the same thing. Like if you're fundamentally weak, you really don't have a script, right? Then how can you actually give an objection because you don't know the script? So you can complain all you want, but you're insecure about what you are. Don't let my confidence affect your insecurities, okay? Because I have the confidence, but they don't have the confidence because they have the insecurity already built in because they don't understand the script. So I would say to everybody, in that situation, if you're losing or you're fearing losing, is what are your fundamentals all about? Do you know your scripts? Are you working on your scripts? And no one wants to hear that, but honestly, that's the key. And, you have to be able to talk to yourself and say, would I buy a house from me? And if you wouldn't buy a house from your own self, then they're not going to buy a house from you. And if if you don't have something to offer, and I think this is one thing I learned through the coaching program, if you don't have something to give them, you can't just call them up and say, hey, you're trying to sell them a house. No, that is such old school. That doesn't work anymore. Not in this market, never, not going to be in this next market. You have to have something to give to people and add to them.
That's exactly why I asked that, because I'm feeling that a lot with not the majority. The majority of agents have just such a great, especially Keller Williams, right? It's such a great mindset, and that's just how we think. We think in solutions and how do we fix it? But there are some that feel a little stuck, and that's who I'm talking to, is the person who can't get over themselves. I think that when the market shifts like it does, it reveals your lack of fundamentals. Honestly, I think you just nailed it, right? Because you go back to the fundamentals, and that's everybody. So if they're not getting, if business is down by 30%, which I think it'll go down even more in 2023, if business is down by 30%, what are you doing to outperform that is the question, right? And that's all fundamentals. It's all, and if you're not Angie Beck and you don't have this amazing database that you've been really rock solid steady with, because those people are doing just fine, right? The Angie Becks of the world, you're doing just fine because you have this solid, authentic, genuine relationship with your database, your people. Those are people, friends, you take care of them. They know that. So the people, if you don't have that and you're listening to this, and whatever business you're running, if you're seeing decreases and all that, you just got to lean in and master the fundamentals. And I like how you said before, it's an inner game too, because I think there's just not enough encouragement we can give people right now to stay in the positive lane, right? Stay in the proactive. Like that's why this live is called Playing to Win, because playing not to lose is a completely different energy. It's like playing defense all the time, but you can't if you don't play offense, you can't score, you won't win, right? And that's the way the second half is the name of my podcast, because you win or lose the game in the second half.
Well, it's back to that mental part that you just mentioned. If you think you're fat, you'll never be skinny. If you think you're a loser, you're never going to win. So if you think you're just an average real estate agent, that's what you're going to be. And so back to the fundamentals are great, and we all know what they are, but then it's the repetition and the repetition. You have to have a lot of repetition to be great. A great free throw shooter doesn't become a good free throw shooter by shooting one. They shoot a lot. And, Michael Jordan always talks about how many shots he missed before he made. And so, like I say, you don't miss the shots you don't take, but you have to get the repetition, and you have to get the repetition in your scripts. You got to get the repetition. But the last thing I want to say too about these young people that, maybe are insecure right now about things, if you look us around you, like look in your, let's talk about a 10-mile radius. Okay. Let's go 10 miles from where you live. If you don't know people 10 miles from where you live, if you don't have interaction, if you don't have your feet out and your hands out touching these people 10 miles from you, then you're missing a boat, really, because you should always keep your insulary area yours. Like you should feel good that you could walk down the street and you are the economist of choice, somebody that wants to ask you a question and they're going to come to you for an answer. So you have to get out and touch people. And that's why you see some of these great agents, and I'm not at their level, the highest, the big dogs. They're on every committee. They're on every platform. They have foundations. They have so many ways to touch people. It's crazy. And I'm happy with my level, but there's a lot more levels to be. And But if you can't be successful 10 miles from home, I don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. There's so many, this is such an opportunity, I think, for people to get back to systems and fundamentals, because we got away from it the last year for sure, right? But getting back to starting that you can believe it, because again, like you said, if you believe it, it's going to be true whether we're going to win or fail. Like, it all starts with mindset, but then you got to get the activity going. And I love that. Like, just start small, start with the 1 mile around you, and then go to 2 and 3 and 4 and get to 10. Like everything starts with that first domino, and you need to make sure it's that first one that you're going after. And I think that so let's talk a little bit more before we wrap up the show. I just want to ask one more question, because I'm so fascinated, because I'm a recruiter and it's part of what I do, right? And I've led offices for 15 years. But what were you looking for when you were putting your team together? Like, what are some of the most common, or that you would see repetitively, characteristics of a winning player? I'd love to know that.
Yeah, well, I called it ideal, IDEAL. What was my ideal player? One is they had to have intelligence. I wasn't looking for a player that wasn't smart. I ran a complicated system, but I also wanted an intelligent player. Somebody that valued their education, because I valued education for everyone. And then I wanted them to have the desire, desire, I wanted to see that desire every single day. I didn't want somebody that was fearful of anything. I wanted them to understand, to go get it, I want them to have enthusiasm. I talk about it all the time, but I think if you have enthusiasm in anything that you do, then it's going to permeate to other people, and it's going to be infectious, and everybody's going to feel it. And then I want them to have attitude. And we talked about this, but your attitude determines your altitude. I know you've heard that, but attitude can destroy a company. It can destroy a family. It can destroy a religion, anything. Your attitude is everything. It's 10% what you think and 90% what you do. And so I looked for somebody with an attitude. How did they treat their parents was number one. If they treated their parents with respect, then I knew they would treat me with respect. But if they didn't like their parents, that wasn't my kind of kid. I wanted that. And then the last thing was loyalty. I looked for loyalty, IDEAL. They needed to be loyal to the school, to everything that they did, to KW. I've been a KW person for a long time, and I drank the Kool-Aid. The Kool-Aid. I couldn't see it being any other place. But you have to dig in to get loyal, right? You have to do things, and you have to believe in it, and you have to be part of the program.
Gosh, I love that answer so much. That was beautiful. I'm so glad I asked that question, because that was such a good nugget. I'm going to write that down. So as far as now today, how you run your business, when you're interviewing people, potential clients that you're not already, because the ones you work with, I know you have a lot of repeat and things like that. When you're talking to when you're in the hunt, right? And you use that word when you're hunting for talent, right? When you're looking for your team members. Are you looking for a certain kind of client as well? Or how does that translate? Because you did that for so many years. Tell me just a little deeper on how you took that skill into going after real estate.
Well, it's really simple. Like, I don't waste my time. Are you ready? Are you willing? And are you able? And if they're ready, willing, and able, I'm ready. Let's go. And they're going to know, like, I'm not going to mess around. I cut to the chase. I don't have a lot of foo-foo. Some people may think it might be a little overlay. I guess they want to call me aggressive, but I call myself, just ambitious. But, they know that I'm going to fight. Like, we're going to go in this, and I bring my coach into it. I'm just saying, hey, this is what you got, and this is where we're going. And I've got the plan. So really, I just look like I don't mess around with people that aren't ready. Like, I'm not spending my time if you're like 2 years out or a year out. Like, I want you now. Like, so I really try to, put my top 10 list up. This is the guys I'm going after because they're hot, and I really look at that. And I think there's a lot of young agents that play with these people that are showing them houses all over the city, and they're not even going to buy. And they haven't even been pre-approved. So that's not happening for me.
Well, that's how you can manage as a solo agent with admin support, right? It's because you're not putting everybody in your car and not, you're pre-qualifying the candidate in front of you, right?
Right. So I just think ready, willing, able. That's the kind of person I go after.
I love that. I love that. Now, well, it's showing up for you, obviously. Okay. I always like to open up real quick. If anybody has a question for Angie before we wrap up the show, any of our guests on the Zoom, any kind of question, this is your opportunity. And I'll watch the chat. Looks like there's no questions there.
Okay.
Silas usually has a good one though. So I just want to give him a second. Yes, here he comes.
No, no question. It was amazing to listen and, so much to absorb in this 1 hour, so many new ideas you get. And like you said, keep on learning, basically I try to keep learning from these Zoom calls, from various other channels, and then even from every transaction. So.
Well, I wish you the best of luck because you're already doing a lot more than a lot of people. So just keep doing it, and
Yes.
yourself front and center. And I mean, the other thing I think too is, pick up the phone. Like, don't be afraid. Pick up the phone and talk to people because I have so many young agents that don't call and they just want to send me an offer and they don't have any idea what they should be doing with it. And I think just keep digging in because it's going to happen for you.
Correct. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Silas. Now, what's cool about Silas is he moved to Austin in the middle of a pandemic, right? Comes from the tech space, doesn't know anybody. He moved here because he had investment properties, an investor background, and he ended up writing $9 million in new home construction with people his first year with investors from Northern California, where he came from, because he found his game. He found his playbook.
Yay! Well, good. I'm sorry I gave you that coach up. You already got it going.
Oh no, he loves the coach up. No, you can't coach him up too much. He eats this up. He's the best listener of the show.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay, so Angie, as we wrap this up, last parting thought for the listeners today on just the playing to win mindset and just how to really live, your best life.
Just I think that just dig in, like just dig in every day, have a plan, and be kind to yourself, because you can get tough on yourself. Like, I think this is one thing that you're trying to say in this podcast is that it's a tough time now. So, you can't be perfect and everything's not going to go your way. And if it maybe take a day off, if you're having a bad day, but I mean, failure. One of my key things is failure always follows those who fail to follow through. And if you just would follow through on whatever you're doing, and follow through with the call, follow through with this, follow through with that, I think you'll be successful.
That's amazing. So good. So good, Angie. I have loved every minute of this. You, my dear, are amazing. And I'm so glad I got to know you a little bit better today. I've watched you from afar, but now I know you, and man, I'm so happy to be on the same team as you.
Well, I appreciate it. Thanks and good luck to you.
All right. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks for being here, Angie. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Angie.
Thank you.
Bye.